Oh, we are picking up on page 76 with our story, our characters. All right, we're going to read 76 through 100. We're going to have a discussion on. So 77 starts with Joanna. We read about a trick that the shoe poet says, right? Joanna's having a conversation with him, so telling him to rest because they have a lot of walking to do. And read about the trick that the shoe poet uses for his knees, and he has this white paste that he puts on it, mercury. Well, mercury has, since this time, been found to be very poisonous. It used to be, and sometimes still is, put into glass thermometers, and it can be absorbed through the skin. And so mercury used to be put into dental fillings, used to be put into some makeups, and we now know that it's absorbed through the skin and can lead to poisoning similar to lead poisoning. It can be toxic. So mercury has been removed from most products now. So sometimes the old wives' tricks weren't so wise. All right, with Florian, we learn the wandering boy's name, right? And he picks up. And so the wandering boy is going to join us. He's going to be with us for the rest of the journey. And while he's not a character telling his story, we learn his story through the other characters. Right? As we read on page 79 with Florian, think about the themes of community, self, right? And what do we see here with Florian? Is he more concerned with himself, or is he more concerned about others with the actions that he takes? Right? And we see that the last sentence, it says, she had no idea, talking about Joanna, it wasn't safer for anyone to be with me. So is he really focusing on himself, or is he focusing on the others? Is that his concern? So as we read, we always want to be thinking from perspective. Is he, what seems like it might be self-serving, is he truly putting the others before him, or is he really just worried about himself? Right. Then we go to 81, 82. We learn more about Amelia and what she's going through. Right? Why might we be learning more about about Prussian? So nothing in this book is wasted. One of the reasons I enjoy this book and going back to it is because I cannot imagine as a writer the time that it took, because I don't think there's a single word that's wasted on these pages. Everything serves a purpose to us. We may not know why we're being told that story at the time, but later in the book it's going to become obvious what the author was doing for us, right? And so we read about a Prussian assassination attempt on Hitler, which is true. That's very factual. And we also, of course, learn about Amelia and her condition. All right, we go on to Amelia in the next chapter, and we hear about August again, right? She's closed her eyes before and thought of August and said, the Kleist had a son named August. And in the very next word, heat brushed my cheeks. And again, look how clever the writer here, August, heat, right next to each other, two separate sentences. Right. Now, I think it's interesting, in English, people capitalize both the names of the months and people's names, right? Proper names. In other languages, such as French, the month is not capitalized. But because we're reading in English, it's going to be capitalized whether it's a month or person's name. Somebody's name can also be August, as we learn, right? And we also learned that even though Amelia is Polish, she was sent out of Poland by her father to go to East Prussia, no doubt for her safety, right? And then we also see mention of the storks again. So when we read about Amelia, we see that symbol of storks. We also see August and heat, that warmth with her. And if you also notice that pink is a color that's often associated in the book with Amelia. Alfred, dear Alfred. Uh, Again, we see that theme of storytelling or fantasy with Alfred, right? Even though Amelia does a lot of it, if you notice, there's oftentimes that we get straight up information. Where with Alfred, everything in italics is Alfred writing a letter to Hannelore in his mind, right? And I think it's a great contrast that we have this wonderful prose that Alfred writes in his mind, and then snap out of it. Have you cleaned the toilets yet, Frick? And so it's this contrast of Alfred and what he is and what he's doing in his mind, fantasy, and then the reality of where Alfred is. But pay attention because Alfred is starting to give us facts. And so while part of what he's saying is fantasy, more when it concerns him, but when we look at the last part of his letter writing, it says the capacity of the ship is 1,463, but I am told we may have as many as 2,000 on board. And then he goes on to say, you're Alfred saving 2,000 lives, as if he is in charge of the whole operation. But that is a fact about the ship and the ship's capacity. So we will be getting some facts about the Wilhelm Gustloff and the operation through Alfred. So not everything he's talking about is fantasy. And so we have to read carefully as you read through Alfred. All right, Florian. What does his pack contain? So pay attention. We've heard about him and his pack a few times. Look at how the author describes the items in his pack, right? And then there's quite a few details about Dr. Lang. And so we want to look at his memory of Dr. Lang. Look at his going back and running through what happened with Lang. And you can almost taste how he's bitter as he recalls that. And then what story does his shoe tell? What does he realize the shoe poet has found out? All right, moving on to Joanna. All right, she mentions the garbage children. Life unworthy of life. And this is a fact. This is a fact that even before the war started, the Nazi regime was paying very close attention to children because they were not just attacking people of religious or other beliefs and robbers and thieves, but they were also targeting people that were not healthy. Because remember that Hitler's dream was to have this master race. And in a master race, you wouldn't have people with disabilities. You wouldn't have people with physical ailments or mental health ailments. And so many children were taken away to be taken care of by the state. And then later parents would receive letters that sadly their child had died from flu and illness. And in reality, they were killing the children, euthanizing the children. Why would they bandage Ingrid's eyes? She's already blind. So why are they bandaging the eyes? What purpose is that going to serve? Right. And then we have a hint at what might be upstairs because Florian whispers, no one should have to see that. Right. And again, is Florian selfish or is he trying to protect the community? Is he thinking of family and community? All right. Amelia mentions the word night for the first time. Right. And she mentions about, but not the night. And she goes on to do some rambling talking, just some thinking that she's doing. And then on page 95, the night was awake. Right. And so, again, pay attention to night. What is this going to be? Because this is going to become a nickname that we see in the book. And we're going to learn more about why she chose the phrase night, why she names him her night. All right, Florian again on 96. Here we get a bit of Eva, right? We get details of what Florian thinks may have happened, and what he's telling is very common. There were quite a few people that did something like this, the story that he tells. And think about, why would they do that? Why would somebody do probably the most horrible thing, which is to kill your own family, right? Because they are more scared of what's going to happen when the army gets there. If the advancing Soviets come or the advancing Germans come, in this case, he's worried about the Russian approach or the Soviet approach. What do they fear might happen to the family? Is it better to sacrifice yourself and your family rather than have them tortured? All right. And then this is another good one where we look at that last line that the author uses. Evacuation orders had been issued. Germany was finally telling people what they should have said months ago. Run for your lives. So again, the author is telling us a lot with just a few words. All right, back to Alfred. How does he describe himself? Look for how he holds himself up and how he describes himself, and what decision did he make? Again, the last lines are always so important in this book of every chapter. But really, my sweet, what choice did I have? Duty called and I made my decision. What decision might that be? Think about it. All right. And so we find out that they're going to be on their way to Fromberg, and they're heading to this lagoon. So as they talk about the ice freezing, this is what they're talking about. The easiest way, and this was very common. They do it in many of these northern European countries, Scandinavian countries. A lagoon or canal will freeze, and they skate across it or walk across it. It's going to have a hard freeze in winter. Extremely cold there in the Baltics. And so this is not unusual for people to cross ice on something like this, like a lagoon. All right? And so the next section we'll be reading on to Joanna in 101.